Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Grateful Giraffes. We are the fireside chat for the Grateful Giraffes. I'm so excited to be here today as your host, and we are also very excited to have Meri here to talk to us about the power of breathwork and men's transformation. But before we get into today's fireside chat, I want to quickly share a little bit about the Grateful Giraffes for those of you who aren't giraffes and are watching on our YouTube live stream. So, the Grateful Giraffes are a vibrant community of over 800 members who value gratitude, wellness, and impact. We're both spiritual and grounded at the same time. We also like to come together to co create meaningful experiences while building a community owned lifestyle brand dedicated to human flourishing. And you can, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch other fireside chats that we've done in the past or future ones as well. And if you're interested in becoming a giraffe, you can go to gratefulgiraffes.com. So today, like I said, we have Meri here for our fireside chat. Meri is a breathwork facilitator and retreat leader, guiding individuals and groups with the power of breath to connect with themselves and the world in a deeper way. He's also the co-founder of Adama Remembrance, a Jewish men's retreat and men's coach. He's on a mission to connect people with their hearts through very somatic and embodiment practices. He's also the author of a kid's book about optimism, which made it on Oprah's favorites list. Mayor travels the world facilitating breathwork and ecstatic dance workshops. When he's not facilitating, Mayor loves to run, to hike, cold plunging, and traveling this big, beautiful world. So we're super excited to have Meri here and welcome to the Fireside Chat.
Mm. Thank you so much, Mingling. I appreciate it. I'm grateful to be here, grateful to be a giraffe member, and also grateful to be asked to be part of this fireside chat today. So thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to have you here, and we'd love for you to share a little bit about, your journey and, how you got into breath work and men's transformation.
Mm. Thanks for asking. And the way I got into breath work and eventually into men's transformational work, men's work, was just me being on my own personal spiritual journey as a human being on this earth. I've had it previously before getting involved in the wellness world. I would say I was a filmmaker, a producer for about 10 years, creating content online, short films, music videos, and such. And my dream as a kid was to always be an actor and a director in Hollywood. With the change of YouTube, I got involved with social media content and creating a community of 300,000 people on YouTube. But as that was all happening and transpiring and the growth was taking place within me, there was a disconnection that was happening as well. A facade or perhaps one version of myself was online. And as things were growing on YouTube, internally, I was going through some of my own internal troubles with mental health, with depression, with uh, doubt, or perhaps an ego death of sorts of like, who am I? What's going on as I approach my Saturn return, let's just say 28, 29. And during that time, my whole identity was around creating content. But a part of me was like, there's something more than just this. And so eventually I got into just looking for different modalities, especially ones that got me into my body. I was super in my head, as a lot of men can be, and people in general, but it happens a lot with men particularly. And I was living from the neck up, as I like to say, just disconnected from my body. And so I was looking for modalities to help me get back in my body, one of which I came across at this wellness retreat, breathwork. And I had a profound experience that you could say was psychedelic. And it brought me back to my childhood, all through my breath. And I'm sweating, I'm cold, I'm having these flashbacks, remembering things, really able to create some healing and a new dialogue within myself of how things had happened, and all through my own breath. And so I was taken by it. I signed up for a couple more breath works. And from then on, I just decided to learn more, get facilitated, get my certification, and started facilitating 2 weeks after my certification, my first group. And that's been now for a couple of years. And then eventually within that processes, I was now just so taken by this embodiment work. And during this time, I was coming out of a breakup, which brought up a lot of my own shadows and my own way of showing up in relationship, and my own lack of self love, and confidence, which I thought I'd had, but there was always a level deeper to go into. And through that processes, that really propelled me to look into men's work in general and go to different retreats and sign up for different trainings. And just the personality that I am, I like to truly, I just throw myself into things. And so I maneuvered away from the content creation or the filmmaking dream and just spent more time and desire into the wellness and so into the breath work, into the trainings with the men's work. And eventually last October of 2023 opened up my own men's brotherhood, my own men's retreat with a co-founder, a friend of mine. And since then it's been truly so fulfilling. And I've been just growing so much through the processes of this. So this is why I keep on going. I grow as much as by giving we receive, and I really feel that way through these communities that I'm a part of.
Wow, I love your story and how, you took your own personal journey and your own personal transformation and you decided to like go deeper first within yourself and then to facilitate it for others. So that's super amazing that you are taking that step to help men and, others with through breath work since you saw that as a powerful transformation for yourself. Can you explain a little bit about what breath work is for those of you us that don't potentially know what it is? Because, a lot of people think of breath work in different ways, so I would love to hear your take on it.
Sure. Yeah, it's a bit of a buzzword these days, and how cool that is, how the world is transforming and we're getting to be able to yeah, get reintroduced to this old ancient modality of our breath. Um, some of my friends or my grandparents would say like, what's the big deal of breath work? I've been breathing all my life. And that's very true. But once we go ahead and we bring anything into intention, like Mingling and I, before we started this, we just you were so kind of you to drop into intention. We said this is not just we set a time and a moment to just take a breath. Like, what is this? Why are we doing this today? And when we bring intention to anything, whether it's a conversation with a friend, with a loved one, before even taking a bite into our food, it sets a tone to the whole experience and really allows us to drop in and to look at it and to experience something new. So yes, we're subconsciously breathing throughout our life. However, when we take a moment or a few moments, a few minutes, maybe an hour or so with the holotropic breath work or longer, when we take an intention and we get conscious with our breath, really taking in the breath and exhaling the breath, um, we can have a very transformational experience because the breath, at least the way it was taught to me, beyond the what it does for the body on a very physical level, for me, it's really a spiritual practice. For me, breath is life. It's life force. Dating back to my own childhood stories growing up, I grew up Jewish, and one of the old ancient stories is that when God created the world, and when God created the man, the human form, he breathed into the nostrils of this human, and that's when life became. That's when he became alive. And so I truly believe, whether you want to believe in the story happened or not, the mythology there is true in the sense that when we take in a breath, we become alive. Everything in this world needs this breath, needs this life. And so when we slow down life, when we take a breath with the breath work, it allows me and allows others to take a moment of peace of mind, of introspection, and to really truly see and truly feel what is alive within us, what is blocking us, what perhaps we can get more in touch with. And breath work is like saying ice cream. There's so many different flavors of ice cream: strawberry, chocolate, vanilla mix, coffee. However, when it comes, so there's no right or better ice cream. So there's multiple types of breathworks as well. When you say breathwork, there's so many different styles and ways. And so what's just like the ice cream flavor, once you go ahead and you try different ones, oh, this one I like, this one actually I like at this particular time of the day, perhaps. So too with breathwork, sometimes we will go into one style of breathwork and it'll have a certain effect on us. Some of it is more energizing, some of it is more is meant for more relaxing, depending how it does what it does on your system. And some breathworks will come into your life at different times. Sometimes we perhaps need a bit more of a holotropic rebirthing style, which really gets us really deep and shoots us up and inwards into our subconscious. And sometimes we just want to do some box breathing or some fire breath, depending on what we want, whether it's to cool ourselves down or to heat ourselves up with energy. So it's really a self-discovery experience, which I highly recommend anybody to go ahead and try for themselves.
I love that. I love how you said it was like it breath is life, and like we're just like being intentional about the way that we're breathing and like bringing that into our bodies. And that's, I never heard it that way. I was like, oh, that's such a really good point. Can you talk a little bit about like the breath work and healing as well too, and how it works together? Because you were mentioning like the holotropic breath and how it like really opens up your subconscious and all that stuff. So how does that
Yes.
actually work?
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. And for those who haven't experienced it yet, you got to go for it. So, breathwork is quite popular right now in a way to go ahead for optimization, like get the body, jump into the cold plunge, get energized, get that dopamine hit, and like take on the day and perhaps be more productive around work. Awesome. And I've used that too. Like I know I need a coming up during the day. I'll jump into the cold plunge and do some breath work and vitalize myself and just get into myself and my body in that way. With the breath work, um, and particularly it could be used as a way to energize and to go ahead and like get another like win throughout the day when you bring in the intention beforehand and say, you know what, I'm feeling a little stuck. I perhaps know there's some sort of inner dialogue that I, a story that I've been, it's not serving me anymore. Or maybe a person got into an argument with their loved one, with their spouse or whatnot. They could really go ahead before I go into this go into a particular breathwork. In this case, I specialize in holotropic rebirthing breathwork, which is a longer period of time with music. It's a lot of activation, and with all that stimuli, it helps a person to really get out of their head and drop into their body. As we all know, one of the most famous books out there these days is called "The Body Keeps a Score," and we know through science now that the body holds on to trauma, holds on to belief, and it creates dis-ease, discomfort within ourselves and with the way we show up in this world. And so when we bring in this, whatever that intention is, okay, I want to work on the relationship with my mother. I want to release this idea I have about myself since I was 4, or perhaps I don't know what's bothering me, but I know there's something there and I want to get more clarity around it. Great. The intention is set. Maybe you light a candle, whatever that is. You put on some music or not. You lie yourself down and you do that 3-part breath work around, that's quite famous around holotropic, which is breathing in and out through the mouth, into the stomach, up into the heart, and you release. And when you set that intention go and you start activating this body in this way, it gives the mind something to focus on. So it shuts off the thinking mind. And then we are able now to enter the wisdom of the body. And once we give ourselves permission to do so through our intention and through our focus, and by being held, by lying down, and particularly because one could get lightheaded throughout this experience, so you feel safe. You're in your room, perhaps you're in a beautiful field. You know that you're safe. You're able to lie down. You start breathing in this way. The mind starts to shut off. The body starts to awaken, and the energy starts to move because dis-ease is really stuck energy, and there's science that backs this when it comes to different types of very here we are talking about men's work as well. So men have there's a crazy percentage of how many men get heart attacks, and it's really correlated now to how angry men get. Men have a lot of stuck energy that there was in society or whatever different conditions have not allowed men to express themselves, so we hold it in, and by holding it in, it really truly blocks the energy flow. And so we get angry. We don't have ways of expression or healthy ways of expressing. And so we hold it back in. And then eventually the heart gives in. So through this activity, through the breath, through activating the body, we're able to now release this energy in a controlled manner. And so this sort of like diffuses the pressure cooker just a little bit. And through this experience, there's could be a cathartic release. There could be some deep insight that comes place because I do believe through my own experience that we have all the answers within. And I was one that traveled the world and trying to find the answers in books and through mentors and through different leaders. And I think those are all incredible tools. However, I gave away my power in the process. So what's beautiful about breath work and through other embodiment modalities, somatic modalities, is that it returns you back to yourself and to the wisdom of self and to be able to truly feel it, not just to think it, but to feel it. And so some of you may be listening right now. It's like, Mayor, I've done this. I've read this in a book. Fantastic. It's one thing to know a thing, and it's one thing to like really know a thing in the heart space in the body. And that's the invitation to like step into some of that practice through the breath.
Oh, it's so true that we have trauma in the body, and I love how you explained it, that it's like pushing it out. And like you said, with like men, they're not taught to, cry or have emotions, or they're like, oh, just toughen up and like, or just hold it in, or then like everything builds. And like that analogy of a pressure cooker is, and releasing it slowly is like such a great analogy. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of men's work? I know there's some ladies here. I'm a lady, obviously, obviously as well too, but like, but I feel like a lot of transformational events, like I see more women than there are men. So like, why is it
Hmm.
important for men to do these types of transformational work?
That's a great question, and it's awesome that some of the ladies are here. I believe they appreciate when men are doing their own work as well. It definitely shows in when they come back from at least the retreats that I posted. We get calls from like the girlfriends and the wives and the partners, like, "Hey, like, thank you so much," because they just see how the men are just able to take that breath and reconnect and verbalize what they're maybe going through. Where sometimes it maybe just be a shutdown or a verbal, yell or abuse or whatnot. There's two types of extremes, right? Either the man, in some ways, not to generalize, but those who haven't had much experience with their own emotions, either there's they hold on until they explode and the energy goes out sideways to the wrong person, or the opposite, which is more in my case, where I would in the past like just shut down. I would get some sort of confrontation, I just shut down, get into my own head, build a story, just okay, or just say yes, 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 and not express my needs, my desires, and the communication and the communication and the relationship ruptures. And so it's awesome that the women are here. And yes, the women in this particular way have been leading the charge when it comes to self-expression, to be able to be in touch with one's emotions for generations. Like this is just, I believe, the karma, the energy of the feminine in that way. And those who are male bodies who have more connection with their feminine energy, perhaps have been able to express themselves in more way and may have been judged for that. That's not manly, and judged for how expressive, how emotional they were. And so thankfully the world is shifting in that way, where it's becoming okay for men to have the space to be invited into sharing their emotions, to redefine what it means to be a man. That one could be strong, not just in physical strength, but just in mind, body, and soul, but also be emotional and to be in touch with that feminine energy, to be like water, to be able to dance, to express, to have the right vocabulary, to be able to take pause and have the right tools to like, what am I actually feeling besides hungry, sad, happy, angry? Like there's so much more nuance to it. And so in these practices, in the retreats and the men's work, a lot of it that I've been had the opportunity to be a part of and to lead, a lot of it's actually, there are ones that have plant medicine involved and that shoot a person out into the subconscious in that way, and it's a very powerful tool. I personally love the retreats and the spaces that not necessarily do that, because I believe that the medicine's within us, like I mentioned with the breath work. So the retreats that have the modalities that keep you in the body, that keep you, grounded, because I believe that's what we need. There's a deep grounding, and the processing takes place in real time. And one of the deepest medicines is brotherhood. The brotherhood that takes place, those connections that where men can have, not beyond just sports, beyond just like talking about a woman, beyond just working out, which again, all healthy in the right ways when it's done in a healthy manner. But there's so much more for men to connect on. The human experience, the life, the struggles, the relationships. What are we doing right? What can we get better at? What was your experience like growing up with an absentee father? What was it like to grow up with with abuse in your life? You're not alone, brother. Like I know that what that is too. And when we're able to bring down those walls and know that we're not alone, then what's quite famous in the men's work talk is like there's it's we get to not be the lone wolf anymore. We get to be part of the wolf pack, and it's within the wolf pack we're able to thrive in the harshest conditions, and that's what we truly need. Like, oh, I like toughen up and do it all by yourself and hold those emotions in. It's the days of like, I think that mentality helped men for a certain amount of time, and also brought a lot of trauma, generational trauma, which we get to now as men break and to stop. And for those who want to have children one day or to adopt and raise their own, we get to stop that conditioning and to help men and young men that are going to come after us to be able to step into their own power, but in a more subtle, beautiful, silent strength sort of way. Again, not to be a pushover. I mean, but to be able to hone their energy in the highest regard, to know what's really going on within themselves, to know what's theirs and what's not, and to be able to communicate that in a healthy way. That was a lot of words. I hope that came across.
No, that came across really well. Like I love that you mentioned community and how it's so important for people to understand, hey, I've been there too. Like that brotherhood and that sense of like I'm not alone. I have like people that have my back as well and be able to do the work and share very vulnerably. And I think that's the important part. It's like, when you're sharing vulnerably, you're being seen for what it is that you went through and you can start to heal that trauma or whatever else you're going through. So I love the way that you explained it. What are like the obstacles like men face when they are thinking about breath or not just breath work, but men's transformation or any kind of like personal growth? Because, like I said, it's not really, societally like encouraged. Yes, because men have to be the tough ones. Like, what are the obstacles
Yeah.
that people face when they first join?
I think some of the obstacles that men will face before jumping into like a men's retreat or a men's group, for example, you don't necessarily have to commit to a 4 day or 3 day retreat. You could go to a 2 hour event that night in your local town or city. But what may happen is judgment. They may feel like they may be judged by others, but ultimately that judgment is really coming from themselves. I would say it's the projection of what they think goes on at these groups, what's really happening. So doing some research on what we're doing here is fantastic, just to bring more awareness of what goes on. And essentially, what goes on is men getting together and really sharing from their own experiences. And every structure may be a little bit different. What kind of prompts and exercises that go on, but essentially, it's a safe space for men to get together and to share and to be heard and seen. Um, in a respectful way, where the man is able to express and be felt and have his emotions felt in the range of it, whether it's the sadness and grief and all the way to the rage and anger. And these are very important. I think sometimes men feel like it's unhealthy to be angry or to have rage. It can be, right? It can be when it's done in the right settings where the container or the person in front of you can receive it or handle it, or it's going obviously to a person that doesn't deserve it. But when it's done in a container in a space that could be held, where a man can be witnessed, look in the eye, and he can let out all that frustration, all that anger that's being built up, or something that took place more recently and just has to come out, that's okay. It's a healthy emotion as long as it's done in a safe space where the man can be met, where the container could be held and doesn't break. So it's very important for men to do their own research and to feel safe within the group that they're going to. But it's so vital and important for these outlets to take place because that where else can it happen? Otherwise the man's gonna shut down and hold on and have that heart attack, or it's gonna come out sideways to someone who doesn't deserve it. And so for some of the things to get back to your question, self-judgment or being fear that they may be judged, like this is something weak, that weak men do this, that what is this, what's about? I'm an alpha, blah, 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 whatever that means, that terminology. Another thing is that perhaps a man may feel like, oh, you know what? I've done such a good job holding it down. Like if something comes out, it's going to be too much for the people and too much for myself to handle. And it'll be too overwhelming. And that's a very valid, fear to have. And that's where it goes back to going to the right group, interviewing the right facilitators or speaking to them, feeling a good connection, feeling safe in that. Also perhaps going to therapy or having a support system around you, and ultimately like really understanding that getting to a space where you feel safe enough that you realizing that the emotions that speaking to enough men have gone through it, that the emotions will pass and you'll only be stronger and more freer from it, that you won't break from whatever it is that you're carrying for so long, that it's not your sword to fall on. It's perhaps it was never your sword and it was just passed down from you from a grandfather or great grandfather. So it's really so I feel like those are really the first steps where men may get stuck as to looking at it as a weakness or and judging themselves.
Yeah, that's like having a safe space is so important to just be all of you and not like having to worry. And so it's great that you're
Yeah,
providing that space. And AJ even writes like anger is a very productive emotion. If transmuted properly, it shines a spotlight on where you're experiencing resistance internally. And it's a gift to be triggered. And it shows us exact spot within ourselves where we're not yet free and needs attention. I feel like that's such a beautiful way to like express it. Yeah, it's
100%.
something to be spotlighted. Um, I would love for like I know this is not about like relationships or anything like that, but since we have a lot of ladies like on here, how can like the women support the men in this process, in their transformation, and maybe vice versa as well, if you've seen that since I know you primarily work with men, but I feel like there's also strength in community like outside of just the men's circle and within like the women and then how to support our the men that the loved ones in their lives that are maybe they're not yet ready for transformation or maybe on the beginning stages of transformation or it could even be like ongoing as well like how can we also show up and support.
Are you asking me or the ladies in the chat? Okay. That's a great question. How could the ladies, those who are in relationship, well, it can be for those. I've come across on one extreme some women who haven't done much of their inner work as well, or they don't have a higher sense of awareness, and they actually do judge men. They do actually call it weak. Like, well, what do you need? You gotta, like this stuff, and like they sort of become the father voice that this man may have heard growing up. They look at it as they have this old conditioning of what a man is, and I haven't come across too many, but it does exist out there, and so I want to bring mention to that. And for men to hear that, and if they do hear that coming out from their partner, to know that that's unhealthy, and that it's actually not conducive to to be in a relationship that's not allowing you to grow and to express yourself in a way that's healthy, or the desire to go ahead and do some of this work in these safe men's groups. Um, However, talking to a woman that's aware and is alive, she'll know it, to like realize that that her man is struggling, perhaps that he's shut down, that there's a certain pattern to his way of being, whether it's in communication, maybe he has certain habits that we in the society call addictions, or perhaps just ways that we mitigate and numb ourselves through life. And that's the case. If to bring it up in a really in a soft way that doesn't make the person wrong, and nonviolent communication, active listening, these are things that we get to learn and get better at, and not to of course at least force a person. We can never force, I mean, someone to do any type of healing. We get to express how it is, how the relationship and how it makes the person feel, in this case the woman, when they act a certain way, when they say a certain thing, when they behave in a certain manner, when they shut down. And to encourage them to to go ahead and find those people. Maybe they have a good friend that's doing their work, and connect that person, go out on a coffee date and have a conversation. um but a lot of that, I would say, a lot of the groups, half of it, at least the ones that I've been running, half the men who are coming up is because of their women. It's their wife or partner, like, hey, I'm here, I don't even know why, but I know things are falling apart, and at the end of it, they're like in so much thanks for the partner for sending them there. So it takes a bit of humility for the man to recognize that, and usually at that point, if there's a conversation taking place, because of the partner is saying something, they'll know it. They'll know something's up. Whether they say it to the partner or not, they'll know something's up. And so hearing it from a place of love, from a heart-centered space, and not right away coming out as an ultimatum, or, I mean, again, it's all, I don't know exactly what's going on in their personal life, but just coming from a place of just love and desire to see the person grow and support them in that way, then I believe it'll be received in that way.
I think it's so important for us to be like partners in that journey, like it's a partnership and like and that's how the world works and it like Rochelle just mentioned like it takes two to tango like if he's on this growth journey there's like a lot of space holding for each other as well. So I think it's really important to like recognize that like yeah it's we're in this together we're working
Yeah.
forward, we're trying to better ourselves, we're holding space for each other and we need to be able to hold space um and a question that she asked is like why don't men sometimes take initiative or why do women have to like do the work? It's like because like you said most women I guess are the forefront like why does that happen I guess in your opinion?
Well, we touched on it before. It's a great question, and there are men who are, and there are men who aren't, and there's because we are in the forefront of a new era, which is super exciting, and there's a transition taking place. So a lot of men, myself included, I did not know that these retreats, that these spaces even existed. I had no idea until I got to a place of deep desperation to through the grapevine, going to one retreat to another retreat that was not men oriented, just wellness oriented. That I heard about it, and then I able to go on. So the more these type of conversations take place and the more men step into leadership roles who are already in the fold and sharing about it, then yes, I do believe, and I've seen more men, there are more men calling up and saying, hey, I heard about your work, I've seen it, what's this about? I know I'm going through something here, I'm going through some sort of struggle. So and I do, and we talked about it a little earlier, that women have been coming together in community, red tents and whatnot for generations, where emotions, where the experience of being the feminine, being the woman has been around. It's been normalized for so long, and so I think we're just doing, in this particular case, men are having the opportunity to catch up and to learn and to grow, and men who are leading men are doing the best they can to get the word out. And so once there's more resources and more men will do it, men are going to step up, and they are stepping up already to realize, like, hey, take some ownership in their life and say, I know I could do better. And have in mind in these groups as well, it's not always in a crisis mode. Men will also come to these groups to sharpen their tools, and if they hit a ceiling in their life, like maybe things are great. And guys have come and it's like, yo, life is good, the relationship is going strong, I'm doing well in my business, but I know there's more potential. So they're able to come into these dojos, into these emotional, mental, spiritual dojos, and see how they could expand, and then also perhaps see how they could be of service. Some guys, come through a facilitation program, like, okay, I've gained so much, now I want to give back. So it's not always in a space of crises. These spaces are also just places for men to be able to learn from others, to find mentors, to stretch a little bit more, because that is internally what the masculine is all about. That to keep on striving to be that giver. So how can we give more? And once we hit a potential, if we don't keep on leveling up, I know from my own experience and speaking from other men, there's a lot of it becomes quite uncomfortable. So any man that's listening to, like, yeah, life may be good, and you're like, okay, things are good, and I'm not really relating to like all the trauma stuff, or perhaps I've worked on it, and I'm clean, awesome, and life will keep on lifing, and it'll be quite imperative and important for you to go ahead and keep yourself in a brotherhood that you feel safe in, so you could keep being called in to higher action, and to also bounce ideas, see how other men are showing up to life, and have that support when perhaps you may not need it now, but down the road you may need it. So it'll be good to keep that brotherhood close.
I think it just goes back to like showing how important this work is, because like you said, not a lot of men know about it, that it's available, that that's something that they get to like do, and it's been taught for so long to like keep your emotions down, or not express yourself. So I think it's great that
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to become like bigger and bigger, and like it will be a time when like there's more men that lead and are able to walk people through this path. I would love to go back to like breath work and how it relates to like men's, transformation. And I would love if you could also share like a breath work practice for us. I know we can't do the whole like hour and a half like holotropic breath work, but if you can like maybe show us and walk us through some breath work practices that would support, people that are on this call on their journey as well.
Mm. Yeah, when it comes to the breath work, it's I use breath work in containers that I create, but also I hold spaces for men and women, and it's obviously open. We all are breathing, so it's the breath work is for all people. Um, that to be said, to answer the question more specifically, how with men, it goes back to what I mentioned before. A lot of men are living from the neck up. We use the mind to, and people in general, like super heady. I disassociated a lot. I would fall into fantasy or just like zone out for hours at a time, especially as a kid, just to like, to survive, so to speak. And so, to get back into the body is a deep practice. Men use their minds a lot for work and for business and to grow. And so again, this connection. So the breathwork is a straight modality, straight to the heart, straight to and as we practice the breath work, it allows the man to practice what it actually feels like to have a quieter mind and for allowed emotions to come through. And it's like, oh wow, like I actually didn't know there was anger here. I didn't know there was sadness here. When we activate the body in this way, as we talked about earlier, move the energy, we may be surprised to see some of our beliefs about ourselves to dim down. For example, someone may say to themselves, I'm not an angry person. I've heard this quite a lot. I'm not an angry person. Yeah, because you never allow yourself to express anger, right? Being angry perhaps as a child and was dangerous for you to do that. Maybe you expressed anger once and it was shut down. And so now you became this identity, I'm not an angry person. So as through this breath work, as we allow ourselves to feel again to our body, we may be surprised, oh my God, I'm feeling angry. And sometimes in those cases when I'm with somebody, they're like, oh, I'm feeling angry. It's saying too much. I'm like, I'll be there with them, coach them through it, allow that to come through and allow that rage to come out. And then a beautiful softness, a release, a grief, some laughter, whatever that may be will come. And then that too will cycle. So as we just cycle through emotions, the biggest mentor once told me uh, the one lie that every feeling has in common is that I will last forever. And no feeling will last forever. The joy and the sadness, the happy, it's all going to keep on passing. So, why it's so important, especially for men, is so they build a relationship once again with their body. As for a breath practice, yeah, like I mentioned, I personally love facilitating and doing the more intense type of breath works, the holotropics, the rebirthing styles. And for that, we could, that usually I find takes you get like a good benefit doing it for at least 10 minutes or so. Like and that's easy. You could do it from anywhere lying down. You could do it sitting up, maybe perhaps against a wall. So you could like rest your head on. That could be easy because you may feel some lightheadedness in that process. Um, but I say we could just do a couple of rounds now, just so we get familiar with it. And then anybody could really go ahead and take this 3-part breath work and use it on their own. Like go ahead, lie on your bed later today if you want, or whenever you feel like it. You want to feel energized and or perhaps you want to release something and give it a go. Put on the timer for 10 minutes, a good place to start. If you want to go for an hour, I yeah, I support you in that. So the way it works is quite simple. It's mouth breathing in and out through the mouth. Most of us, especially those who read James Nestor's book, Breath, may say, oh my God, nostril breathing is the move, not breath work. It's like, I know, I know. Just for the short period of time, it's not going to do any damage for you. Um, so mouth breathing as wide as possible, like an ah. Some people tend to breathe through their teeth, sipping their teeth, tightening their lips. I try to remind people to just open the mouth wide as possible. If we're imagining that the breath around us, the oxygen around us is the abundance, is the blessing, is all the goodness that we want to bring in. Like why close the portal? Open the portal as wide as possible. So open the mouth wide, and with energy, uh, bring in the breath first into the stomach, into the diaphragm, and you want to feel the diaphragm expand. Some of us, when we breathe, we suck in the diaphragm; it goes inward. Rather, we want to expand ourselves, and so that first breath, about 70% of energy will go into the stomach, expanding it. The second breath will go up into the heart space, and then we release a sigh. And it's important to remember on the exhale to not hold on to the exhale. So some of us may breathe in, no, you just release. So it's a simple a sigh with softness, not with strength. And so we just continuously do this in a circular motion. 2 inhales, 1 exhale. 1 in breath into the stomach, second breath into the heart space, into the chest, feeling them both expand when you do, and then the exhale. Let's do this for about 20 seconds together. And just see, as you do this, you may feel tingling sensations in your fingers and your toes. You may feel lightheaded. That's normal. That's okay. And just imagine you do this for a minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. What starts to happen is you start oxygenating your body in this new way. You start having these physical sensations, which is pretty cool to like feel your body in this way. It's very embodying. But also beyond that, as you do this for maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, you'll start to realize or perhaps start to experience a an emotional shift take place. And you may be surprised, like, oh, why am I feeling emotional? Well, that's what we're talking about before. We're starting to move that energy around. You may start sweating. You may feel some coolness. And as we start to move energy around this stuckness, you'll be surprised to see what's underneath, what that guard is blocking. And when you do that, you may feel emotions, you may feel a desire to scream, to laugh, and it's really important to give yourself permission to do that because we far too long have been not giving yourself permission, walking this earth, walking this world with too many masks upon ourselves, and not giving ourselves the space to feel what we need to feel in the moment. So let's assume for 20 seconds for those who are here to feel into it. One hand on the stomach, one hand on the chest. This will be a lot easier lying down. And you want the hands are there just as guides so you can feel those hands rising and falling. All right. We'll do it. 3, 2, 1, mouth open. Follow your own pace, not mine. And as you breathe in, just imagine all the good that you're breathing into your life, all the abundance, all the love, all the acceptance, exhaling when you do, releasing all of the pressures, all the limiting beliefs, all the things that do not serve you. Let's do 10 more breaths. Keep your eyes open or closed. 5 more cycles. Last one. Oh, just feel your body to see the difference in how it may feel between when we started to where we are now. And some of you may be thinking, why didn't we hold our breath? There weren't any breath holds. And that's, common in some practices, some not. Um, it really depends on your facilitator and your own personal practice. Yeah. And again, that's a practice you just do on your own for a longer period of time, but that's the framework.
I love that. Like already, like even the short, like 20 seconds or whatever, I was like lightheaded, it's like I already felt like the oxygen like really flooding
Yeah.
my body, and like it doesn't really need to take a long time. I've done longer breath works, but it doesn't really need to take a long time to feel the effects of it.
Mhm.
And already like, I'm just like, ooh, okay. Like I see the world a little differently. It's everything's like a little brighter. I'm like, ooh, a little buzz and buzz. Um,
Yeah.
can you talk also a little bit about like what other things to expect? Because like, some people may be new to breath work if they do it for a longer period of times. They might not know about the claw hands and like, like you talked about the lightheadedness. But just in case people are like just not aware of like what can happen in their bodies, if you could talk a little bit about what to expect from that angle, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. It is quite important. I'm glad you brought it to the attention to go more in detail because doing this, especially for the first time, can be quite intense and full of surprises. So, on a physical, mental, and emotional level, here are a couple of things you may experience. On a physical level, you may feel the lightheadedness. You may feel some pins and needles in your toes and fingers. Your body temperature may shift to hot or cold. And then there's something called tetany, which is a scientific term for cramping, specifically around the hands. And your hands may start to cramp in a very specific manner for those who are watching a video like this, which is what it looks like is like your fingers coming inwards together and just getting in a very interesting tight, mm, dinosaur claws hands. You also may get tight around the jaw, and that's quite common. Again, my spiritual teacher taught me was you may ask yourself where if the jaw starts to get tight, where in your life where in your life are you not speaking your truth? Where are you not speaking forth what you need, your desires? If your hands starting to get tight, where are you holding on to life so intently that you're not giving space for flow, for surrender, for God, for spirit? So the body again is communicating with us. What may happen as well is on a mental basis, your mind will start, especially in the beginning. I did mention how the mind will start off, but before it does, it's not going to let you so easily. That's where the ego lies. It doesn't want you to have this experience because it wants to keep you small, it wants to keep you in this experience that you are because it knows it. Yes, it may not be the best for you, but at least it feels quote unquote safe. I know your troubles. I know your tribulations. I know your challenges. I want to keep you small. So in this space of expansion, it's going to try to go over time and make you think about certain things, maybe your fears, maybe your anxieties, maybe the to-do list that you have to do and like we're wasting time. Maybe you'll judge yourself. This is so stupid after 30 seconds. Allow your mind to do what it does and come back to the breath. You don't have to change it. You don't have to go into dialogue with your mind. All you got to do is go back to the breath pattern. And on an emotional level, as we talked about before, full permission to allow and feel the emotions that come up. So through the practice, if you feel a certain emotion, if you feel a desire to move your body in a certain way, go ahead and do it. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. And when you do that, you may unlock something around your shoulder, the lower back, the left knee. Who knows where you may be carrying it? But if you have a desire to just shake it out, to do it, go for it. If you desire to yell, laugh, and cry and scream, go for it because a beautiful gift, a beautiful understanding will be gifted to you after you allow yourself to do that. Time and time again, when we allow ourselves to express, to feel, then some sort of insight, some sort of release, um, and deeper awareness arises after that release.
I loved how you explained, like, just noticing the sensations of where, like, it's tense in your body. I never really thought about that. I've done breathwork practices and I always get claw hands, and I'm like, oh, I am probably holding on to something a little too tightly. I don't know what it is, but like, it's a good
Mm,
way to go introspective and like, and really think about it. Or sometimes like I pass out, not pass out, but I like lose focus and like I forget to breathe, and the facilitator has to prompt again. So it's great to like think about, okay, why does that happen? Like, where is that like showing up in my life, and just be very introspective for this as well. So I love that. And final question, like what, last piece of advice or a key takeaway do you want people to leave here with around breath work and or men's transformation that they can take with them?
mm. The barrier to entry is quite low to go ahead and try any of these things. And well, more importantly, you're not alone. So if you're a man in the fire who's going through something tough, just know that you're not alone. As unique as you may think your situation is, I can promise you that there's a man out there who can relate to you, and you will feel less alone but you got to make that effort of showing up and sharing that from yourself, being that vulnerable one. Um, and in breathwork in general, to like yeah to there's now it's been really cool, especially if you live in a major city. This type of breath work, there's a yoga studio that's hosting a breath work, or there's breath work studios that particularly focus on breath work. Or if you can't make it to a studio, hop on an app online. There's quite a few good ones out there to just go ahead and practice, or take this practice along with you, the 3-part breath work. Lie down for 5-10 minutes and see what it does. Even if it's just a physical experience, maybe you're not shooting out and having a psychedelic experience or an emotional experience right away. Give us some time. Give us some time. Where else in your life do you hold such a high standard that the first thing that you ever do something that you'll have some sort of um uh transformation? So like, give yourself some time, have some patience, like anything that may be uncomfortable or new for you. But I can promise you, the breath, it's something that we do always, and so we just bring some intention to it. It'll change your life.
I love that. It's just a practice. It's like you got to start somewhere and you got to move forward and just attempt it. And yeah, I just loved everything that you shared today. Thank you so
Mm,
much for your wisdom. Learned a lot of new things that I didn't know before. I think, Max even says just sending lots of love. Thank you for your time and energy. We just really appreciate that you're showing up for the men in the community, and with the work that you're doing. And we really appreciate you. And if people are, wanting to reach out to you, feel free, because, I think this is needed in this world, and a lot of men could utilize this. So thank you for everything that you do.
mm. Thank you. I appreciate it, and very grateful for the invitation to share and to be part of the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.